What's up, fellow Boston sports fans? Huge episode for us tonight. Episode 50. We got 4 action packed guests lined up for you. Got to start it off with the founder of the Boston Sports Journal, Greg Bedard. Going to talk about the Gronk situation. Why isn't it done yet? Who he thinks will be a surprise rookie star this upcoming season. What's the holdup with Sony Michel? Why isn't his contract done yet? And some other things with him. Also going to talk with the founder of the Black and Gold Hockey Podcast, Mark Allred. Huge and awesome stuff. We're going to talk to him about Bruins prospects, including, who he thinks is going to pan out. A couple that aren't going to pan out. A couple of those that might surprise you both directions. Also going to talk with John Karalis. He's the co-host of the Locked On Celtics podcast, co-founder of Red's Army, and a contributor of Boston.com. Going to recap the Summer League with him, Marcus Smart contract situation, if he thinks Jimmy Butler is a good fit for the Celtics. Then we're going to talk Red Sox with the host of the Rundown on Boston Herald Radio, John Sapochetti. A lot of good Red Sox stuff. If he sees their record so far, does he think it's fool's gold, or does he think they can actually keep it up in the second half? Some moves that they might make heading into the trade deadline, etc. So, hoping guys enjoy it. It's going to be a great show. Here we go. We are now joined by Greg Bedard. Thanks for joining us, Greg. How's it going, man?
Good. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate the invite, and glad we could finally catch up. So, let's get to it.
Cool. Yeah, both of us are big fans of yours. So, what made you want to start Boston Sports Journal?
Well, a few different reasons. The number one reason was, I got laid off at SI because people there don't know how to run a business. And, I looked around at sort of what was going on. Fox Sports was, getting rid of writers. A lot of places were pivoting to video. There just really didn't seem to be any, good jobs, national jobs. And, truly I'm at my, I enjoy the job more when I really have one team to focus in on, whether I was the Dolphins when I covered them, or the Packers, and then the Patriots for the Globe. Even when I was at the Globe, I was the quote-unquote NFL writer, but really I viewed myself as sort of a Patriots columnist. Like, I didn't want to, other guys did the job differently. I didn't want to venture out too far from New England because I figured my readers, that's what was important to them, so I needed to know what was going on with them. So, when I looked and I saw that there weren't, I didn't think that there were going to be any jobs available come training camp. A couple of Twitter followers said you should check out this model that's going on in Pittsburgh at DK Pittsburgh Sports. And pretty much instantly, as soon as I looked at it, I said to myself, that's right up my alley, given my background. Sort of, when I was in Green Bay for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, they put me in charge of the Packers blog. And so, we grew that from, you get 10, 20 comments on a story to where we would get about 500 because I built a community and engaged the readers. And, it was a place where they wanted to be all the time and interact with each other. And, you combine that with how, DK's site was so hyper-focused just on Pittsburgh and not worrying about other things. And, and considering the state of sort of the media in New England, it's not as strong as it once was for various reasons. I just thought that there was a void and a need for another voice or a set of voices in this market. And there were other guys without jobs, and I said, hey, why don't we just get together? Let's give it a go and see where everything goes, and let's just keep writing about sports for, as long as we can. So that was sort of the genesis of it. And, of course, my wife and I, she's sort of the financial side. We ran through the numbers and they made sense. And if they didn't make sense, I wouldn't have done it. So far so good. And we'll be celebrating the 1-year anniversary next week, right around when the Patriots get started with training camp. And so we're looking forward to year 2.
There's a great stable of writers, awesome content on there. It's well done. You guys do really good work on that Boston Sports Journal across the board.
Appreciate it.
Anyways, let's jump to this Gronkowski situation with his contract. What do you see the holdup is overall with that?
I think it's a couple different things. I think that I don't think Gronk really did himself many favors with the way he conducted himself for most of this off season. I mean, look, there's a couple of ways you can go about things. And I mean, first of all, his contract's not that out of whack this year. I mean, he is making about $9 million a year. Last year, and this is even before we get into, he already got bonuses, a signing bonus. He signed this contract where everybody knew if he was healthy and everything and got to the second half of this deal where it was a team option, Gronk was going to be at a disadvantage. But that's the risk you run with signing a long contract up front. And so, I think the number one thing is he's not grossly underpaid. I mean, if you want to compare him to guys who have in contracts later, certainly it looks that way. But, look, you give something to get something. And Gronkowski decided to give away some long-term money for short-term gain, and that's the risk you run sometimes. The Patriots did right by him by putting in incentives last year, but now this year the contract's at a decent level. He's not grossly underpaid like he was last year, so I don't think the team is desperate to do something. And I think you couple that with sort of the way he conducted himself, some of the things that he said. I mean, from all the retirement stuff, flirting with Hollywood. I mean, he admitted that all that stuff was true. Why would the Patriots be in a hurry to redo a contract or give a lot of guaranteed money or whatever they're going to do to a guy who's not even sure whether he wants to play? And he's a guy who admitted that last year, or at least this is what Tom Curran reported, that last year during training camp, he had second thoughts about whether he wanted to keep playing. So, if you're the Patriots, are you in a rush to all of a sudden redo his deal before you're really sure whether he's bought in? I mean, because this is a guy who skipped just about everything in the offseason other than the mandatory minicamp. He's a guy who gave that embarrassing press conference on Patriots soil that sort of, showed up the Krafts, Belichick, the whole football operation, his teammates. I could totally understand why the Patriots aren't in a rush to do anything to his contract, but I would expect something gets done either on the eve of training camp or perhaps a couple weeks in, once they see, okay, he is bought in. Let's kick in a few more incentives, and we'll see what happens.
Perfect. Thompson?
Yeah, last year you were all over Butler being a surprise rookie star. I remember, I think it was Felger was kind of making fun of you last training camp, and he was absolutely awesome as a rookie. But that being said, who do you see being a surprise rookie star this year?
It's a good question. I pretty much, a lot of that stuff, whether it was me sort of, propping up Dietrich Wise or Adam Butler and those guys. I mean, that kind of comes from, I have to see them on the field and see what they look like, among NFL players, and whether there's any pop, if there's some explosion, if they have some sort of unique skill set that maybe the Patriots lack or could sort of help them in games. So that's sort of a thing that I look at like on the field once we get in the pads after the first couple days. But, from what I've seen so far as the OTAs and mini camps and things like that, I would probably have to say, and I'm not sure which one it's going to be, but I would have to think that one of the rookie linebackers, whether it's Christian Sam or Shawan Bentley, one of those guys sort of jumps out and does something. Because look, number one, the Patriots have a need. It's not like they're outside of Hightower. It's not like they're exactly killing the linebacker game, with the current set. Even though, there are certain parts of all those guys that I like, Van Noy's smart, he's strong. Marquise Flowers is, a good athlete, can do a little bit of everything well, probably runs the best among the linebackers. Landon Roberts, when the guys up front are taking up blockers and he's free to roam sideline to sideline, he can do a really good job. But, I think there's definitely an opening for somebody to come in and take that middle linebacker spot. So I'm very interested to see, once the pads go on, I want to see what Sam and Bentley can do. And, we'll sort of see if they can upset the pecking order there and sort of insert themselves into it.
Yeah, I absolutely love the 3 up, 3 down that you do on that show. That's one of my favorite segments that they have on the program and period across the board. I always look forward to that. That's
yeah,
awesome.
we always have a lot of fun with it. They don't like my offensive line talk, but of course, if things go wrong with the Patriots, like a certain strip sack in a Super Bowl of late, all of a sudden people start talking about the offensive line, or their upset losses in some of the Super Bowls. The offensive line didn't protect well, and so you got to give the big fellas some love and some care, because ultimately they're going to be a big part of whether you're successful or not.
Speaking of linemen, have you heard anything about Shaq Mason's contract situation by chance?
No, I have not. Just from the last time I talked to Shaq during minicamp and we talked about that, from talking with him, it didn't sound like much had been going on. Knowing the Patriots' MO, I think that they're, probably at some point going to try to get some sort of team-friendly deal. But if you're Shaq Mason and you're that close to free agency, you're probably just going to say, no, I'm going to bet on myself and we're going to see what happens. And so I expect, they got two unique guys in Trey Flowers and Shaq Mason who are both going into their contract years. While I think they're both very, very good players, I can see the Patriots thinking that their value around the league isn't that high, and they're willing to maybe sort of do the dance that they do with a lot of guys, which is, all right, go out and see what your market value is, but if you would come back to us and give us a chance to match, we'd like that. So I don't expect either of those guys to get long-term extensions anytime soon, unless they're willing to take some sort of team-friendly deal.
Right. I like Shaq Mason a lot, and Flowers, like you said. I'm really curious how Isaiah Wynn's going to pan out. He looks like he's going to be really good on the line.
Yeah, his college tape, him playing linebacker, at Georgia. It's, he's a really good, smart player. You can put him in a lot of different places. You just wonder, what exactly is his best position? How does that marry up with the offensive line? I'm not afraid, and I know I've had conversations with Dante Scarnecchia about this. While you'd love some 6'6", 6'7" left tackle, that you don't necessarily need that. The Patriots went up against a guy, and I wrote about this at the time of the Wynn pick, that Kelvin Beachum, he was an ascending left tackle for the Steelers until he got hurt, and then they ultimately went with Villanueva. But Kelvin Beachum was a really good player, developed He's bounced around a little bit after the injury, but now he's getting starter salary. I forget where he is now. I know he's at Jacksonville for a time, but I think he's moved on from there. But, I think that, when it comes to Scarnecchia, he's just looking for, can you do the job? And Isaiah Wynn did it in the SEC, the best conference in the land, the best athletes. And so I would not, disregard him at all in this competition. But, look, the pro game's entirely different than the college game. And, I'm sure he has a lot of work to do.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm wondering if they're kind of thinking in the back of their mind, maybe we could use him as a Shaq Mason replacement if you end up losing him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think that, you look at, sort of some of the things they've done, but you look at Wynn. The thing I love about Belichick is that, almost always he gives himself outs, and, he doesn't, he never really, seldom does he get in a position where, that the Patriots are wholly dependent on retaining a guy and they have to overpay. I mean, I think, Devin McCourty was one of the rare times, when they did that, when, they allowed him to go to free agency and he just about had one foot out the door, and all of a sudden I think Belichick looked at his depth chart and said, we'd really be screwed if we didn't have Devin, so they sort of overpaid for him. But, between what Scar does, what they've done in the past, I mean, you look, we're talking about a team that traded Logan Mankins right before the season started, and I think they won a Super Bowl that year, if I'm not mistaken. And so, I think with Scarnecchia around, they're very confident that they can figure the things out. If all of a sudden Shaq Mason, does not take a team friendly deal and wants to go to market and wants a max deal, that's fine. I mean, they have other good players. I mean, Ted Karras is a good player, and even some of the guys, James Ferentz, Luke Bowanko, who they signed from Baltimore, I mean, showed some things in camp. So they definitely have options if they want to move on from Shaq at any point. I mean, because that's the whole thing. I mean, if they're not going to re-sign Shaq Mason, which they probably already know whether they're going to do that or not, then I would not be surprised if he's traded at some point. I don't think they would do the same thing to Trey Flowers because they don't have much on the edge if they trade him. But Shaq Mason, yeah, they have other options if they want to move on and sort of, get a little bit more than what they would with a compensatory pick.
Thompson?
Yeah, sticking with the offensive lineman, how do you think Trent Brown's going to do here?
It's a great question. I don't know. I mean, he's definitely a guy that I need to see on the field and see whether he can stack success. He is a guy who played well at times last year for the Niners, but we're also talking about a guy who, has a propensity for getting hurt and also overweight. And so, he's a big dude that helps a lot of the time, but, we're just going to see we're going to have to see how that goes.
He's a house, pretty much.
Yeah.
He's a big boy. Any other questions, Steve?
Yeah, so Sony Michel, how come he's not signed yet?
Well, it's a good question. I think Miguel, otherwise known as Pat's Cap, is readying a story for BSJ on that. I sort of leave that side of the Patriots to him. But, just from some of the things that I've seen and some of the things that I've heard, one first-round pick, he signed for a lot less guaranteed money than normally you get at that spot, and I think it sort of gummed up the works in that area of the draft where Michel got picked, and so I'm sure that has a lot to do with it. Teams, once that happens, teams are like, well, that guy took that, so why should we give you this? And all of a sudden there's a dance, and, I don't think it's going to be much of an issue. Running back is not a position that I worry about if a rookie happens to come in a little late. But, the big thing for him and all rookies is they just, once they get on the field, they got to stay on the field, because once they start missing time with hamstrings and things like that, all of a sudden you're creeping up on a lost rookie season. I don't think anybody wants that.
Yeah, speaking of Miguel, he does awesome work too. Probably the best, one of the best in the business, I think. It's incredible how he can take care of all those numbers. Like, wow.
Yeah.
This dude
Yeah,
is
he's always
talking
spot
everything.
on.
Absolutely. I mean, when I started this up, there were certain people, some knowledgeable Patriots fans and things like that I had, interacted with on Twitter or, in blogs or podcasts and whatnot. And, I said, if I get an opportunity, I'd like to give these guys a chance to show what they can do. And Miguel was definitely one of those guys. Doc Flynn was another one who does, great work with our medical stuff. And I think since she's been writing for us with injuries, I think she's batted 1,000 on all her initial injury diagnosis. So, we're happy to have both of them, and they're not only are they great, writers and contributors to BSJ, but they're a couple of the most hardcore Patriots fans that I know, and I know a lot of them because I'm from here. All my buddies are from here. I graduated from Lincoln Sudbury, and so, I'm surrounded by Patriots fans all the time, and so, I hear from all of them, and Miguel and Doc Flynn are definitely two of the smarter Patriots fans that I've come across. They're very passionate about what they do.
Yeah, I love that all the Boston Sports Journal personnel interact with the fans. That's a good thing too for us who are.
Yeah, that and unlike some other outlets out there, we are completely homegrown, homebrewed. This is a Massachusetts business run by Massachusetts people who've lived here, who have covered the team. We don't have any other markets that we worry about. All we care about is, the teams that you guys are passionate about and what you guys want to read. And so, that's where our thinking goes, what do Patriots fans want to read today, or what do Red Sox fans like? We don't worry about opening up in other markets and things like that. We got one market. We're the people that you see at the Little League baseball field and things like that. And so, we're proud and happy to serve this community.
Perfect. Well, the final question for me is, what difference do you think, if any, is going to be going on with the Patriots defense this year under Flores rather than Patricia?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think there's a lot of unknown there. I think that Brian Flores is certainly a guy that I've been very impressed with over the years. I've been sort of waiting for him to get this chance. He is definitely, I've been saying for a few years that he is going to be a head coach in this league. It's just a question of when. I will say this. I mean, look, the bottom line is Belichick, the buck stops with him. So Whatever goes on, Belichick has to be comfortable with it. But there's no question that Brian Flores is a lot more emotional, aggressive, things like that than Matt Patricia. Now, are we going to see that contribute and carry over to the players? It's possible. I'm not going to discount that, but I think it's a situation just like with the players that the better Belichick sees him perform in the moment as we go along here, then the more latitude he'll be given, and I think that would be a good thing, because I do think that the Patriots at times could stand to be a little bit more aggressive, but then again, they need to have the horses. I mean, I know a lot of people are down on the scheme from last year, and that was part of the problem. For me, it was look, they just weren't that talented. I mean, when you take Hightower and then you take a guy like Malcolm Butler out of the lineup in the Super Bowl, I mean, all of a sudden you're talking about two of your difference makers in the Super Bowl, and any defense is going to have a hard time when that happens. And I know guys like Patricia weren't crazy about some of the losses that they had in free agency last off season, and so. We're going to have to see, do they have the horses? Are they getting younger? Are they getting more athletic? Are they getting guys with better legs to run around and make plays? Because, I don't care what kind of X's and O's and what kind of schemes you have. If you don't have the guys, if you don't have the horses to make the plays, then a lot of it's moot. So, I am excited for Brian Flores. I think he is. You are going to notice a little bit of a difference with those guys. But ultimately it's going to be, how good are they? Because that's going to tell the tale.
Absolutely. You got anything
Great
else,
stuff.
Steve?
No, it's great stuff. And just before we let you go, just kind of promote yourself, where people can find you, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. If people want to come out to, bostonsportsjournal.com, check out, our subscription rates. I mean, a yearly, it's like $35 for the year, which is like, a Starbucks coffee once a month, to get, all the major sports, including the Revolution we cover. I mean, the big thing is, our Pacers coverage with myself and Chris Price. I think it's pretty tough to beat in this town, and when it's really going to pay off when you have my in-depth training camp practice breakdowns, and that's where you read a lot of stuff before people really notice things. I talked about Malcolm Butler, not being a happy camper early in training camp. Other writers, thought that I was, just trying to draw attention to myself. I never do that. I mean, I write what I see, what I hear, what I believe. And also you can read about, up and coming guys like Dietrich Wise and Adam Butler, and, one-on-one pass rush drills and things like that, where, other people try to do it, and they give it a good go, but, I've been doing this for 14 years, and, I like to think that I know what I'm talking about, and I think that's been proven over the years. And then, of course, my, in-season game reviews, breaking down, so exactly what's going on with the team and which players are playing well and which ones aren't. That's the type of stuff that you can only read at bostonsportsjournal.com. And, if you want to continue to read different voices, myself, Chris Price, Sean McAdam, Brian Robb, Anthony Galizia, Doc Flynn, Miguel Banzan, Pat's Cap, we need your support to come out, buy a membership, and trust me, you will get your money's worth every day of the year.
Fantastic.
100%.
Yep. Yeah, it's a great site.
Oh, absolutely. Love the Q&As on it too, by the way.
Yeah, we do that every day. Chris does one on Mondays with Patriots. I do another one on Friday on the Patriots and the site, and a lot of other stuff. And, and we answer every question. This is not a, and then also you get into our, live game coverage where, Chris provides that, and I'll get into the comments and answer questions as the game's going on at halftime and stuff like that. And we are always, listening. We're always engaging our members. I mean, because, you guys really run the site. What you guys want to read, what you guys want to talk about. I can't tell you how many stories have come just from comments or emails from members, stuff that they want to read about. So, we love to interact with our members and take our cues from them. So the more the merrier over at BSJ.
Excellent stuff. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem, guys. Thanks for having me, and good luck to your Pats this season. Should be an interesting one.
Absolutely. Have a good night.
So.
Thanks again.
All right, see you guys.
See you.
See you later.
We're now talking to Mark Allred. How's it going tonight, man?
Hey, what's going on, Chris, Steve? How are you?
Fantastic. Just enjoying the thunderstorms.
Yeah, exactly. Same here. I live up
Yep.
in Amesbury near the New Hampshire border, and we're getting them pretty good. We got them good earlier with a lot of rain, but we're just getting some stragglers going by now.
Yep, same here. So, I figured start you off with what got you into hockey, like a career, company, that kind of stuff.
I started playing when I was a kid. Actually, my dad was a goaltender. Played in the local leagues, just beer leagues. He was a high school. He was a high school teacher, but he was a teacher throughout the school system for like 35 years here in Amesbury. So, that was his escape, to get away from everything. He went to the rink and played. He was a good goalie back in the day, and when everybody raved about it, and I was a little kid, I mean, any father's son just gets all giddy when good things are being said about your dad and how he played. So I took that to full advantage, and that's all I wanted to do. And I went on. I never played pro. I had a chance to go to the East Coast Hockey League back in the day when they were basically inviting people to come and try out. That goes way back. So I never went. I just decided to stay home and work because I had the passion to go, but I didn't think I had the body and the the health to do it. So I became a goaltender. Played ice, inline, and deck hockey. So I did that for about 30. I think I retired after 32 years of playing net. So my body's beat up, and I just love writing and talking on podcasts like this, and so a lot of fun.
On your podcast in your website, what made you start that out?
It was because I retired. I needed something to do. I was pretty much skating and playing, either once or twice, sometimes 3 times a week. So that ate up a lot of the time that I was able to go out and do something, activity wise. And when I stopped playing, I just I got kind of antsy and kind of fidgety, and decided to invest into a little money into a website, and then talking to people like Jeff Merrick and Elliot Friedman, not directly, but hearing them on their podcasts and seeing what they write when they blog, the advice that they give, it's just you have to start somewhere. So you start with a website, go to a podcast, and grow your following. So I took an aggressive approach to that, and I started the blackandgoldhockey.com website, and I think we have 16 to 18 writers right now, and we have 4 podcasters. It's myself, Mark Allred, and Court Lalonde, Rob Tomlin, and in the second hour, I do a really good program on It's All Prospects. So me and my friend Josh Bemis, we get together, and all we do is talk from the AHL down to the prospects that are all over the world. So the Black and Gold Hockey Podcast, which you can find anywhere on any podcatcher. Forgot what I was going to say, but we do 2 segments. We do pretty much an NHL hour and then a prospect hour, so everybody can get a good fill of what they need and the updates. We do it weekly, so everything's on the week by the week, and it's a lot of fun. So, and it's growing. I mean, we've got a really good following, and we really appreciate it to any of those people that are listening on your program that happen to listen to us. Thanks for the support, and hopefully we can gain some more from listening to your fantastic program.
Yeah, you guys
checking out your site. Go ahead.
Right. You guys do great, really phenomenal work on the prospect aspect of it besides just hockey. To me, I don't know really of any other people around that actually do that. So that's something to be said about your team and what you guys produce to begin with overall. So let's jump into some prospects talk, shall we?
Absolutely.
What's your thoughts on the goalie prospects, Vladar, McIntyre, and Swayman?
This is kind of my wheelhouse, and I'm kind of happy you started with this subject. Dan Bedard is absolutely one of my favorite prospects. Being up close with him and interviewing, and also seeing him at development camps and various training sessions around the Boston area when he's been with the team in Boston has been just something to watch. I mean, this kid is growing rapidly, and please, I know a lot of people look at numbers and so on, but don't look at his East Coast Hockey League numbers. They're not good because he doesn't have a good product in front of him, but why he's there, he's gaining valuable experience. He's gaining a lot of shots, and he's getting playing time. So his advancement to the Providence Bruins this upcoming season is going to be huge for him because he does have much better stability in front of him with a better, constructed defense. Jay Leach runs a great program down there along with Trent Whitfield. So they give him the training. Asenza's not there all the time. That's Bob Asenza, the Bruins goalie coach. That's why they hired on a guy like, oh man, I'm killing these names. Mike Dunham. So they hired Mike Dunham on to kind of relieve Bob Asenza from the travel. So he's been working hard with him as a professional coach. So everything's good with him. He's going to be a fantastic goaltender in Providence, and I can't wait for his full-time role there. So he'll tandem up with Zane McIntyre. To segue right into Zane, he's had a good career, and it's all basically been in American Hockey League career. I think the guy's got tremendous ability. I just don't think his role in the Bruins organization is going to be much longer. He's got 1 year left in his current 2-year deal, so I don't see him coming back after next season. I see a lot of progression from the guys below that are basically forcing him out. So I think he'll have a better opportunity to get NHL time with the other the other 30 teams in the league. So best of luck to him. Hopefully he has a really good season. He does have some good AHL numbers, but like I said, the National Hockey League, it's a small sample size, but it really wasn't anything that blew me away. And Jeremy Swayman, University of Maine, unbelievable kid, really good interview. He works really hard with his goaltending coach, Alfie Michaud, and coach Red Gedron, and also Mike Dunham, who was a former Maine alum. So it kind of fits all in really good with Mike going up there working with him. He's an Anchorage, Alaska kid, and why he came to Maine, it was a great story. I wish I had time to tell it, but he really stepped in a huge role last season. Robert McGovern was the original goaltender, and he's been there for last season was his 3rd year. So after 2 years, Jeremy came in and outplayed him. I mean, he basically won the job as a freshman, and went on to have a 15-13 season. But again, he's a goaltender that saw a lot of shots, and by having him getting all those shots, I think he was heavily considered by being selected by Team USA for the World Juniors last year. So he's a growing goaltender. He just seems like the kind of kid that wants the education. So I think he's going to fulfill that 4 years. Who knows with the Bruins? They do have the tendency to pull people out early, like I believe they did with Danton Heinen, but that's a totally different story. Whether he remains or not, he's going to be a fit into the system appropriately, and I think he's gonna have a lot to give. Not only you forgot one, Chris. We do have another one in the works, and that's Kyle Keyser. He was signed last year to a free agent deal, entry-level free agent deal, shortly after Malcolm Subban was claimed on waivers. So he's playing with Jack Studnicka in Oshawa, and he had a career year last year. I mean, his goals against were above 3, save percentage a little above 9, but he's a good player. He got trucked twice, and I'm a little concerned about that because he walked away with 2 concussions both times. So something to keep an eye on for the future. I hate head injuries because just the way they turn out most of the time, especially in a sport that's just getting faster and faster on a yearly basis. So, I mean, we really got 4 goaltenders in the loop right now. I think there's going to be some good stability. I don't see McIntyre making the NHL at all with the Halak sign, and I think that basically forced him out, or trade. You never know if he's going to complete his contract and walk away, or the Bruins are forced to trade him and maybe get a pick for him to get him that opportunity somewhere else. Who knows? But just because he didn't have success in the NHL, McIntyre was a valuable part of this organization, I mean, we all need a foundation to get to the top. So those guys in the middle that plug and work hard, I mean, they're making $70,000-$80,000 a year down there compared to their, NHL 650,000. So I got to give kudos to him and for what he has done.
Yeah, I hear the name Dunham and Michel was a UNH fan. Put sweat on my forehead immediately. That's pretty good.
Oh yeah, that's right. You are a UNH fan, right?
Yeah, I was a regular from way back from early '90s all the way up until the early 2000s.
Yeah,
right from Snively all the way to DeWitt.
Yeah, we talked about that the other night. Yeah, I was a big Humility fan, so it was tough to see him go last season.
Right. Well, I mean, it was his time. He was there forever and a day.
Yep. But, exactly. Just
like
ahead, Jack Parker.
Yeah, well, he was there like 25 years or something, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, easy.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah,
So as far
really
as So as far as position prospects, who are your top three, strengths, weaknesses for him?
I'm a big fan of Jack Stanika, selected in 2017 in the second round. Seen him for 2 development camps now. He's got a boatload of talent. He could seriously challenge for a spot this year. Even though I'm against it, it's nothing to do with his talent. I just think he just needs more development. And with the way the Bruins are structured right now, I just don't see him fitting at least this year. And I like the eligibility that if he doesn't go to the NHL, he has to go back to Oshawa because he can't play in the American Hockey League because he's 19 years old. Only 20. Do you guys know that rule?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
I haven't heard of it. You have to be 20.
All right, so 20 years old. You can anytime over 20, you can play in the American Hockey League because basically, at 20 years old, you're pretty much gone out of your major junior years. So, so if you're 18 years old and you get drafted, you can't go to the AHL. You have to at least make the NHL team. Or there's another way that this could happen. If the team loans, it's very rare, but it can happen. There's a loophole. Like if the Oshawa Generals loan Jack Stanika to the Providence Bruins, that could possibly happen. Kind of weird, but the rule is to keep the prospects in the lower leagues of development, so the ownership and communities can gain money. It's all about money. You know that, right?
Right.
So if Connor McDavid was going to be selected and all of a sudden you got 1 year out of him when you could possibly get 2 or 3, that's all dollar value. They just don't want the NHL coming in and pluck them away. That's why that's a big component of why leagues like that want to raise the draft age to 19.
Kind of smart on their end.
Oh, absolutely. But going back to Jack Stanika, I like his game. He's a good center. He's got good size, great stick handling ability. Really wowed me for the second development camp. And I haven't seen him play live for Oshawa, but I do stream. I'm not physically there watching the games, but I do stream a lot and record. So I play a lot of his video back, and I look at it, he's really that good. And I liked his attitude at development camp this year because he was the big prospect there because graduating players like Trent Frederick and Donato and all these other players weren't there. So he took the spotlight for all 4 days. Just a good kid, good demeanor, smart, great IQ, and he plays the game. He's just got those uncanny abilities to maneuver around the 200-foot sheet and the vision he has and a pro release. I just think that he's got what it's. I think honestly, I think he's a little higher in my prospect rankings, in my opinion, than Donato. So I know I'm probably gonna get trashed for that, but anyway, it's just my opinion.
Watch your list.
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah, we wouldn't trash you. No way.
No, but it's happened in social media before. My second guy is Trent Frederick. I got to pick another center. I mean, the team is just plentiful of centers. This is what this organization seems to have done the past 15 years. Is just breed centers. But Trent's a special kid, man. I mean, he does have really good size already. He's at over 200 pounds, 6'2". Another one that's really smart and he's good hockey IQ. I loved his game at Wisconsin under the tutelage of Tony Granato, a former NHL pro. And in his freshman year, having 30 points in 30-something games, and then having 34 points in 36 games last season as a sophomore, really stepped up his ability and definitely proved to Don Sweeney and the other management members that maybe it was time to take him as they did with Danton Heinen out of Denver. But I liked Trent's game in the AHL. He played, only a handful of games, but he had 8 points in 13 regular season games after having 32 and 36 with Wisconsin. So a full season of the AHL is recommended for him, in my opinion. And I wouldn't mind seeing that because of what everybody saw in Jake DeBrusk. There was a lot of people that weren't sure about where Jake DeBrusk was going to land when he first, came to the Bruins organization. I know he played out in the Western Hockey League, but was he going to make the jump from the Dub to the NHL? And I was like, I really want to see this kid have a full year of American League hockey, and I stuck by my guns. And I'm really glad that they did because it really brought him into the organization as a whole, even though he was just a young kid. But he, look what he did this year. Just amazing skill for his age. So he's just going to get better. And that's a great sign for Bruins fans that, even though that people might think that he was a huge reach, the Kyle Connors and the blah, blah, blahs and Matt Barzell's was still available. And look what you're seeing. It's right in front of you. So I do like Trent Frederick. I think he's a year away regardless, but he's still really high on my list just because of the skill sets that he has. He plays that 200-foot game really well and has just lightning speed. You get him in open ice or even in double coverage, he finds a way to get away and just opens it up where people just cannot get him, not back check on him at all. So, the next one, I got to go with Euro Vakanainen, the defenseman, selected last year in the first round, which it's kind of weird for me because I thought that the Bruins should have picked a forward last season and then picked a defenseman in this, heavy defensive draft. But it's what happens behind closed doors is what they do, and everybody has opinions. But I do like the selection of Vakanainen regardless of where I think he should have been selected. But he's got a really, really good eye for the game. He takes the puck up the ice really smartly, and this tape to tape stretch passes. He's got really good ricochet passes that he can have the option of there's a lane blocked. So let's make a pass up the boards and see what happens. Really accurate on that ricochet, not very offensive. When they play over in Europe, they're really not offensive defensemen. They're more stand alone, stand back, and but he does. There's so much more ability that we can get out of him as a growing kid. He's 19 years old right now. He's got a whole future in front of him, but he's already starting to show pro signs, even though he's not over in the AHL quite yet. I think that another one, he's smart. to put down in the A, at least for a season. And if not, he'll definitely be available for a call up if injuries happen, and get a little exposure, a little taste. It doesn't hurt. So yeah, good things from him. So that's my top three.
Now, on the flip side, is there two prospects or other people are high on, but you're not so high on yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And I got three, if you don't mind if I threw another one
That's
in.
fine. Shoot it, go fire away.
Yeah, I was really high on Jesse Gabriel. He was selected in 2015 when Sweeney really loaded up on draft picks when he sold off Dougie Hamilton and Lucic and really, brought the prospect pool back to what it should be after the daunting years of Peter Chiarelli and how much he just sprinkled talent everywhere. I I was really high on Gabriel because he does have unbelievable skills. He reminds me of Brad Marchand miniature 2.0. He can be that agitated player. He can be that skillful player. He's got a lot of talent and the passion for the game, but I just think he doesn't have a great attitude, and I think that affects his hockey and his game. He played out in the Western Hockey League with Prince George, the Regina Pats most recently, but I was kind of I hyped him. I hyped this kid up myself with a lot of other people that I know that I'm not going to mention, but I mean, when his game in the Western Hockey League was unbelievable, and this kid was, 75 points in 72 games. I mean, he was having just years like that, and I fed right into it. But when he came over to the pro level last season, he only played in 21 games and got 4 points, and that was not enough for Bruins management to hey, we're gonna keep you up here. So shortly after, he went back to the WHL after a trade happened. His rights got traded, I believe, from Prince George to the Regina Pats, where he went and played, and they were actually the host of the Memorial Cup this year. So, but he didn't really play much because he was injured. I had a lot of faith in this kid, but I hope he turns it around because I believe this is his last year on the entry level, and I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen. No, I'm sorry, he's got 2 more years. So I think he has a really good shot at playing in Providence, and if not, he could be an option down to the Atlanta Gladiators in the East Coast League. So. Which I wish they'd use a lot more because basically Dan Vladar was the only prospect down there last season. It's like, why do you carry a AA affiliate when you only have one prospect? But if you think about it, when you look at the Toronto organization, the Toronto Marlies have a great setup in the American Hockey League, but they also have really good prospects with their Orlando Solar Bears down in Florida. So it's like, that prospect pipeline could be really rich if you wanted to sort through the freaking, the good ones, the bad ones, and rise the ones that really want to show you skills. So I kind of hope the Bruins do go in a direction like that and do utilize their East Coast affiliate. This one might not be so much liked. And it's not because of the player himself. I brought in a lot of angles into these questions, and I apologize if I'm rambling on, but Jakob Forsbach, Jakob Forsbach Karlsson, he is a great kid compared to Mini Bergeron. He's got a lot of skill and a lot of talent, and I really enjoyed watching him on the American Hockey League Bruins, Providence Bruins, sorry, but he was injured a little bit. He does have that skill, but I just don't see him cracking the roster next season with so much more talent that's just like jumping over him in line. So with that being said, he would be a fantastic asset, in my opinion, for a trade because he's only got one more year left on his entry level deal. Because do you guys remember when he played that one game?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
When he played that one game, his 3-year went immediately to a 2-year. So now he's got negotiation. Now he's going to be an RFA closer. He's basically signed for 2 years. So he's got this season, and then he has to, renegotiate. I mean, as an RFA, you do have that longer time to like you work things out, not just on the July 1st. So, I think that he'd be an asset to move, and that's why I put him into my, into that category because I don't see him cracking the roster, but he's definitely going to be one to challenge for it. So, he's very fringe with me.
Right.
And the other one is, and I hated to pick this one. I should have just kept it at 2, but I can't help myself. Is Jakobs Borrell. I really do like. I'm sorry, Jacob. I get the Jakobs and Jacobs messed up. I like Borrell a lot. I like his. I watched him a lot in St. John's, and I had a really good contact. I still have a good contact up there. And Craig Eagles, he works for Rogers, and he's a TV color analyst, and he writes some blogs up there too. So, he always fed me information about what was going on with Jakob and even Cedric Pare, which is a Bruins prospect. But last year was the first full season for Jake, and I thought he played well. I thought he stood up to himself for himself. I thought he used the body really well. Not terribly offensive, but he played decent. I just don't. I think he could be another one in that trade, factor because he's brought up a lot. Because a lot of people don't like the idea that he's a 2015 draft pick and he hasn't had any NHL time yet. They pretty much like put him in the category as vaccination. He hasn't seen any NHL time yet, so he must be a bust. Everybody throws the Jordan Caron and Zach Hamill label on him. So, but I mean, if they wanted to invest in more time with him, even after his entry level, which is over for the next 2 seasons, I mean, there could be space for him with McQuaid gone and Chara seemingly leaving, maybe Miller and so on. So he might be one of those players that really could facilitate, roster spots on the bottom 6 if he's kept. But I just don't see his game transitioning to the NHL really fast. Like people want him on the team next season or the season after that. I think he still needs to work on a lot of things. But he's one of those. When he was with St. John's in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, I noticed trends with him. Like one year he'd be very offensive, and then the next year he was like really shut down and didn't want to get that. And then the next year he'd be more offensive. You know what I mean? So I think he was in that trend. I think he was working on different parts of the game and not doing it all at once. And then really screwing up his development later on. I mean, that might sound a little weird, but it's just kind of my opinion on what I saw. But yeah, that's it for that.
All righty.
Steve? Good stuff. Good stuff. So, top 3 Bruins that you think are untouchable at this point?
This was a great topic. And I didn't even have to think twice. But it's definitely McAvoy because I want that defenseman. I need to start the building block on that. DeBrusque stays, and so does David Pastrnak. I think that all 3 of those guys are basically the 3 that you can definitely build a franchise on. And I know that I could have gone with a Bergeron and having the veteran leadership too, but last year was a great year for Bergie, a career year, and I hope he does the same as he gets older. I never want that guy to go away. complete heart on the ice and gives it all and really teaches these kids, how to play the game appropriately and respectfully and while having a decent amount of skill doing it. So having Bergie around with a plethora of centers in the in the development system isn't such a bad idea. But there's a lot of people that saying his time, his window is kind of shrinking along with other Bruins. So I don't believe that. I want the Bruins to put out the best team that they could possibly do with the best that they have, and figure it out. So
yeah.
I need a drink.
Yeah, I want to be in denial when that day comes.
Right.
The Bergeron.
Gonna need a off day from work.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Call in sick day.
You all set? I got another question for you. You got your drink?
Oh yeah, I got him. I'm
Okay.
I'm ready.
All right. So long ways to go yet before we actually hit the regular season. But what's your early thoughts and predictions for how the Bruins' upcoming season is going to pan out? You see them making a further jump in the playoffs or regressing? How do you see it playing out?
See, this was a tough question for me last season because the season before that, obviously everybody knows the Bruins made the playoffs for the first time in 3 seasons, and then got exited out by an Ottawa team in the first round. So that was like kind of the building block. So then I just went from there and went like, okay, the Bruins didn't make any major moves. I mean, they signed, Paul Postma and somebody else that, really didn't make a big deal. Just, depth additions, and I respect that. Every organization does that. But they really didn't go out and make that major move. And so I just basically said they're a fringe playoff team. If they want to be, they can get those points that they did to get into the playoffs with Ottawa the season prior. So I basically said that they're either in or out, but they'll be somewhere there, wild card or whatever. And after the first year, I was surprised. I'm like, this isn't going to end well, and I hate to admit it. I freaked out on my show. I'm like, I don't understand what is going on here, And I wanted the youth this day, and everybody is like, trade the youth and get the veterans back, and it really became pandemonium. But the good thing that happened was everything came together at a certain time, and I know one player that doesn't get the respect that I believe he deserves, but took it personal that he was going to lose his job, and I think that the signing of Yaroslav Halak this year is going to push Tuukka Rask even more than Anton Khudobin did last year when he went on that little run and it kind of was really good and pushed Rask to like let's go, and then went on that tear at the end of the season to the end of the season, I'm sorry, and got into the playoffs, which made the second round. So my expectations, to be honest with you, Chris, is I want to see them make that next step to the conference final, the third round. And whether it's not done or it is, it remains to be seen. Because they're not making that big splash in free agency like everybody wants them to do. I think Don Sweeney is still breeding patience. And I think fans really have to adjust to that because, even though an organization's always thinking Stanley Cup on day 1 on October 5th, you know what I mean? There's a lot more involved in that. And I just think that Sweeney got this organization where it needs to be, having a truckload of prospects that you can either build on or you can use in trades. This is the time, this is what everybody was waiting for, and now everybody wants to package 4 or 5 of them and send them off to wherever for another impact player. In my honest opinion, guys, I'm thinking that these guys are going to be 2 or 3 players away from getting back to a cup, and it might not happen this next year. It might be a 2 to 5 year window, you never know. But there's something to be positive about. It's just I'm not the Stanley Cup rah-rah that's like, I put my jersey on October 5th versus, the Washington Capitals and be like, it's cup or bust. No, that's not me. I'm more of a realistic person that just, let's see how it flows. Let's see how it works. I like seeing the puzzle pieces being put together and seeing what Sweeney and Cassidy do to make these positive changes. And I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm getting old and a little more relaxed.
Yeah, maybe. Could be. But I see what you're getting at. I'm like that in some ways, but I still have my moments of being a little impatient about things at times. So I guess I'm halfway home, I guess, in that regard.
No, I mean, it's so respectful. I don't get mad at the freakouts. I mean, I just choose not to dive into it because it brings you down a lonely path of, this game is going to continue as long as the world is still turning and we haven't got hit by a meteor that could wipe out. Folks don't have to worry about this game ever going away. It's almost like they're afraid that the season's over and then it's never coming back. So, but just believe in the process. I mean, it's a company, it's a corporation that put this together, and how it operates is many moving parts. It's just not, we could pluck all these great players and put them on there. I mean, it's not like the Yankees, when they have a ton of money they pay and they go out and spend, what, $100 million a year on a luxury tax because they can do that, or do they have a hard cap now? I'm not into the whole baseball.
No, they don't.
No.
Okay, so they can spend as much as they want and they still pay the luxury, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so you'll see. It was like the NHL back in the day. Remember when the Rangers loaded up and they did nothing? Oh, that Rangers team that was Teakin. I mean, basically the whole Edmonton Oilers just moved to New York,
Right.
and they did absolutely nothing. It was like an all-star team, basically, that just you were building on individual efforts, but you weren't organized as a team. So, sooner or later we'll get there. I believe that Don Sweeney's got an eye for the prize, and he knows how to do it. But he's calm, and I respect that. But let me tell you something. I will be freaking out if the Bruins don't do anything at all. If they're not doing well in late December, early January, I mean, you want to give yourself enough time to make a move to possibly, scratch those extra 10 points that you need to secure a playoff spot. And if you're not even there, that's when you put the hammer down. You make a deal. You aggressively go after the free agents in next year's class, which is going to be so much better. And you put together a decent team because you're going to have even more cap next summer on top of the 3 or 4 million that's going on this year. So it's going to be exciting times. And, I'm just a hockey junkie, and I watch as much off-season hockey as I can. Listen, I'm crazy enough to stay up till 3:00 in the morning and watch the Australian pros.
Oh, that's
impressive.
Yeah, but I'm just happy they play on the weekends because I couldn't do that during the week.
That's hardcore right there. Well, it's been very informative interview that you've given us. I highly recommend anybody listen to follow him and his team of writers on his blog, not his blog, but his his website, his podcast. It's been fun. You got anything else, Steve?
No, I just definitely appreciate you coming on. Just tell everyone where they can find you again.
My name is Mark Allred, and on Twitter at blackandgold277. You can follow our podcast at Black and Gold Pod. I also have another show that I just recently published 2 episodes. It's called The Beers and Bruins, where I get together with a fan or two and have a couple drinks and talk Bruins. What could happen with that. But you can follow that show at Beers and Bruins Pod. We also find our writings, our content on the blackandgoldhockey.com website, and we generate anywhere from 40 to 60 articles a month. So there's pretty good content to read. We're not one of those clickbait sites, and we're not the Hockey Feed or the Hockey Journal or whatever, blah blah blah. You know, we're just honest fans that have honest opinions, and you know, no corporate strings. You know, but we're fair. We keep it clean. We want the readers, so we'd appreciate the support.
Absolutely.
And thank you very much, Chris and Steven, for having me on. I really appreciate that. I mean, I hope I didn't take too much time up by yapping so much, but like I said when we first started, I really enjoyed this stuff, and I kind of love going off a little bit.
It's all good, man.
Yeah, so anytime you guys want to hook up again, let me know. I'm be glad to help out.
Definitely.
No problem.
Yeah, thanks again, man. Have a good one.
Take care, everybody.
You too.
See ya.
So now we got John Karalis on us. How's it going tonight, John?
Going great. How you guys doing?
Doing really
Hanging
good.
in there.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. So you were out in Vegas at the Summer League, right?
Yes.
How did that go? Who impressed you the most? That kind of stuff.
Let's see. From a Celtics perspective, I thought Jabari Bird was pretty good. He showed a lot of athleticism, and ability to drive and finish at the rim, hit the three. He's trying to become a better defender. So from a Celtics perspective, I thought Jabari Bird has shown that he is right there at an NBA level talent. I thought Lonnie Walker for the Spurs showed like he's going to be a pretty good player. He's a super athletic kid. I'm really excited to see him. And I think Kevin Knox for the Knicks showed that they really made the right choice there. I know there were some people who were questioning the Knicks, making that choice that was at 9. And he really exploded. I mean, he's another athletic kid. He can do a lot. He's a versatile player. So I think he's going to be pretty good. I think from around the league, I mean, those two guys really stood out for me.
Yeah, leave it to the Spurs.
That's a Kentucky boy, Steve, by the way. Just Knox, just so you know.
Well, leave it to the Spurs to pick another good one.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, those Kentucky kids end up being able to play basketball.
Yeah, you're talking my language now. Steve's a Duke fan. I'm a Kentucky fan.
I mean, I've not been a Duke fan in my life, but I got reason to like Duke right now.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you make of this Robert Williams situation early on?
How much time do we have? Now, off to a, we'll call it an auspicious start with the Celtics. He missed his first practice. He missed his first conference call. He lost his wallet, plane. So it could be one of those things that, I mean, right now I'm laughing about it.
Yeah.
And I know what the history says, and we'll see what that ends up becoming as he progresses in the NBA. The Celtics are taking every precaution to make sure that he is able to perform at his highest level. They have held him out. He had a knee contusion that he suffered in the first game. They've held him out until they're absolutely 100% sure that it is healed. So they're not putting him under any physical duress. They're not giving him any excuses. They have dedicated one of their assistants specifically to him, that he's going to be basically Walker's kind of right-hand man. He's going to be there wherever Walker goes. He's going to be part of his instruction. If he goes to the G League, he'll probably go to the G League with him. So they are doing everything they can to make sure that Walker has the structure to survive and excel in the NBA. He's a young kid. He's supremely talented, and maybe in the past he has shown maybe a lack of self-motivation, we'll say, to put it nicely. And sometimes that is just a trait that continues forever, and sometimes that's a trait that is part of being a supremely talented young basketball player. And once he realizes that the NBA is a different animal, he can start getting into the better habits. I think the Celtics are one of the teams that can give him that environment to bring that out of him. If he can't excel with Boston, then we know he's probably not going to excel many other places. Maybe that's not entirely true, but that's as close to being true without knowing what the future holds. They've got a stable ownership. They have no interference from the top. Danny Ainge is as secure in his position as a general manager as anybody anywhere. Brad Stevens is as secure a head coach, and he has created an environment in Boston where players almost universally excel and exceed expectations. And he has great veterans in the locker room. Al Horford, Gordon Hayward, Kyrie Irving, they're all great veterans. Al Horford, especially as another big, will be in his ear. He is the most professional of all basketball players. He's got a lot of great structure from inside the locker room all the way to the top. He will have every chance to succeed. And the question is, will he take advantage of it? And will hopefully stay positive for now.
Well, touching just a little bit further on Williams, what was your initial thought when they drafted him? Were you high on it, or how was your feelings about it?
At the 27th selection, having that level of talent, there was a zero-risk selection there.
Right.
A kid who's got a ton of athletic ability. He, if nothing else, he can rely on his ability to set a pick and roll and catch lobs, and he can block shots. And those are useful skills. We'll see if he's able to play more in the Brad Stevens system, which means he would have to expand some of his range a little bit. He will have to handle the ball at the top of the key, which is not something that he's used to doing. But as far as pure talent, he's a guy that can take advantage of today's NBA. Now, he's not the prototypical NBA player that people are looking for today. Everybody wants stretch fives, but in this scenario, there's always the pendulum tends to swing the other way. Now that we've got everybody who can shoot, sometimes a big who can roll hard to the basket and catch lobs, like a Clint Capella type that he's always compared to, sometimes those guys can take advantage of that because everything else is so spaced. So he does, if he reaches his potential, present a matchup issue in some instances, and he's got all of the physical tools to be that kind of a player. So to get him at 27, it really is no risk, because the worst case scenario is he doesn't pan out, and at that slot he's making less than $2 million, which teams can stretch, and it becomes nothing. So it really is, at that point, I was very excited about that pick.
Awesome. Steve?
Yeah, it's a great point you made about him not really being a stretch five. Maybe it'll throw some teams off. They won't really understand right away, at least how to guard him.
Yeah, I mean, look. Everybody says Capella, and there's value to that. A guy who can block shots. If you can block shots and start transition opportunities, then that has high value, because you can get more field goal attempts in the game, which means that you get more opportunities for all of the Celtics scorers to get an extra touch or two, or for even guys who are struggling to get easy layups, easy looks, and that can ignite an offense. So a guy like Williams, who can block shots and start transition opportunities, will be a highly valuable guy. And if you pay too much attention, because look, you put him out there with Kyrie Irving, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Gordon Hayward, those four guys you have to pay attention to on the perimeter. They are all good three-point shooters. And a point on Gordon Hayward, the year off that he had rehabbing his injury, he has improved his shot. He's added strength. He has added quickness to the release. So he's going to be an even more dangerous guy. If you have to pay attention to all of those guys, who touches him going down the lane? So I think there are spots where he can be used effectively. Is he going to be a superstar in this league? Probably not. But you can carve out a nice 12-year career being that kind of player.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exciting stuff to think about. So, like, on to some more. What do you think about Marcus Smart's situation? How do you think that's gonna play out?
Well, that's a tough one.
Mm.
Everybody kind of saw this coming. If you really are an observer of the NBA over the course of time, a second-tier restricted free agent really has a high probability of twisting in the wind if he's not able to come to some sort of agreement before free agency starts or an extension back at the beginning of the season. So the Celtics offered Smart an extension back in October, and his agent basically laughed it off. He went into the postseason without coming to an agreement, and I'm not even sure they even tried to negotiate. And I don't know if that's a tactical thing on the Celtics' part. If they said, "All right, smart guy," not Marcus, but his agent, you think you can threaten us into a big deal? Go ahead, go find your client some money. Everybody who paid attention knew there was no money for restricted free agents in this market. Very few opportunities for restricted free agents in this market, and now things are drying up. Even the Hawks are unable to. They just made a move they just got Jeremy Lin, so their cap room is mostly gone. They're not going to be able to get Marcus Smart. The Bulls' cap room seems like it's going to go to Jabari Parker. They're moving forward on the deal, so that money's not going to go to Marcus Smart. That leaves the Sacramento Kings as the only place that could give Marcus Smart money. And the question is, are they going to give Marcus Smart the type of money that it takes for a team to say, we're not matching that? Marcus Smart's value in this market especially is somewhere in the vicinity of the Dante Exum deal, which got him about $11 million. Marcus Smart signing $11 million per year. Marcus Smart signing for $11 million per year, the Celtics will match that. So are the Kings going to give him 15 or 16? Are you going to really be willing to pay Marcus Smart 15 or 16? I don't think so. So I think Marcus Smart is stuck. And the question is, does he kind of tuck tail and go back to the Celtics and negotiate a deal or at 2 or 3 years that's a little bit below the value that he was originally seeking? Or does he sign his qualifying offer, play for 1 year at $6 million, and then say, I'm going to go take whatever big deal I can get next year as an unrestricted free agent? The tea leaves seem to be pointing towards him signing the restricted free agent, the qualifying offer, and going unrestricted next season. So he'll play for $6 million this year in Boston, which I think the Celtics would be fine with because that keeps them below the luxury tax line for another year. And so that helps them financially. They'll still have another year of Marcus Smart, and then next summer they can figure it out. Remember, all this summer you had 24 people or so sign 1 year deals, and you're going to have a bunch of guys like Jimmy Butler and Kyrie Irving and I think Klay Thompson and a bunch of other Kawhi Leonard, all able to opt out of their deals. So they're all hitting the market. I don't know what money is going to be available for Marcus Smart next summer either. So we'll see how it goes. My guess, probably qualifying offer, kick the can down the road, and maybe at some point during the season or something they can figure out a time to sit down, have cooler heads prevail, and sign a longer-term deal.
Well, I think that's a smart thing for them to actually do, really. I mean, that's what Allred would probably do.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Marcus Smart just got basically, if he's legitimately pissed off, then he'll bet on himself and say, I'll take the $6 million and then I will make more than whatever I gave up in the open market. It's entirely possible. He may want to try just a 1 year deal next year and then hit the open market in a couple of years when the cap spikes to $116 million or so. We'll see. But when you get to a point where you're signing a qualifying offer and playing for that 1 year, that's almost the point of no return. Things have gotten bad.
Definitely. You mentioned Jimmy Butler from Minnesota. You think Ainge would ever really go after him? Do you think he actually would fit in Boston?
Well, I mean, Jimmy Butler's really good, so he can fit basically anywhere. I think. I don't think he's the type that doesn't necessarily fit certain places. But I mean, I'm sure we could, if we thought about it, we could come up with a couple of examples. I don't think he's going to pursue Butler in any sort of trade unless he feels like Kyrie Irving is going to leave Boston. I'm not 100% sure that that's going to happen. I think he's much more likely to stay. But we've heard the rumors that Butler and Kyrie might want to play somewhere, and who knows how that goes. But I don't think that Ainge pursues Butler in any sort of trade. I think he's better off kind of rolling with what he has. He had an opportunity to get Butler before and didn't do it. I think he's happy. I think the Celtics team is pretty stacked. And not only are they stacked, but they're set up for the future as well. Obviously, they've got Jason Tatum, they've got Jaylen Brown, two guys that are really, really young, and they can be held under team control for quite some time. They also have potentially 4 first-round draft picks next season, one that could be as high as the second pick if the Sacramento pick conveys. So they have an opportunity to not only be good in the short term, but good in the long term. And I don't think that Jimmy Butler, as good as he is, I don't think he moves the needle enough to jeopardize any of that longer-term stuff. I think if Danny Ainge does make a move like that, it would have to be cashing in all of those trade chips for like a Kawhi Leonard. And I don't even think that he's really trying to do that either. So I'd be a little bit surprised if Jimmy Butler came to Boston.
Steve?
Yeah, it seems like they would have to give up a lot to get him, and then he's only got 1 year left. So do you really want to do that for a 1 year rental? Yeah.
No, not at all. Not for Butler.
Yeah.
I love Butler, but not for 1 year of Butler.
Right, exactly. Final question for me: how much of a jump do you think Tatum's going to make in year 2?
I mean, I think he can become a significantly great player. I think it might be hard, but look, the East is a little bit weaker. I think he could be a borderline all-star player. The only thing that would hold him back, I think, is just how many other great players there are on the Celtics right now and how many votes would get taken away by Gordon Hayward. Because I really believe that Gordon Hayward's going to have a tremendous year. But I think Tatum is going to be great. And I think we're going to see him with one more year of confidence. And last season, he deferred a lot. And I think as the season progressed, and especially in the playoffs, we saw him become a little bit more aggressive. And that's when he really started to show his full repertoire. I think in the next year or two, as he continues to get stronger, hit the weight room, get that strength in, fill out his frame a little bit, and just mentally take those steps forward, knowing that he can be a premier offensive option. I think he can be at an all-star level very, very quickly.
Well, that's all I got, too. Thanks for jumping on with us.
Yeah,
really appreciate it.
Where can everyone find you? What do you got going on?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at RedsArmy_John. I will be tweeting incessantly all of my stuff that I have been writing or working on. You can go to Boston.com and find some of my stuff. The most recent thing I wrote was from Summer League on the officials, actually, because the Summer League is also a training program for future NBA officials and a few current NBA officials who are trying to become like crew chiefs and advance. And we don't really think about the referees much, except when they, are biased against your own favorite team. But I found it to be a really interesting look at how they are recruited and coached and trained and evaluated, much like players are, and there is a high level of passion that they have, and they really do seem to be very passionate about keeping the game as fair as they can and doing a good job. And I know that making mistakes for the people that I talk to really, really bugs them. And so that's on Boston.com. I hope people go read it.
Absolutely. Now, this coming year, you gonna do the like halftime Periscope videos again?
I'm hoping to. It depends. If I'm at games, I can't do them from games, but I think I can start doing them from like when there are road games or when I'm at home watching.
Cool. Yeah, I enjoyed those. I watched a bunch of them.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, sometimes life got in the way, but this coming season, I'm hoping to do a lot more.
Cool. Good stuff. Yeah, thanks again for coming on, man. We definitely appreciate it.
You got it. My pleasure.
We are now back with John Sapochetti. How's it going tonight?
Doing fine, guys. How's everybody?
Well, pretty good. Trying to stay out of the humidity.
Absolutely. We get a little break from baseball with the All-Star break, but looking forward to final 2+ months.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got the All-Star game, home run derby tonight, so that's always interesting. Usually the people I pick don't even make it to the final.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a star-studded group because obviously, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, J.D. Martinez not taking part in it. Just one American leaguer, Bregman from Houston, and then Bryce Harper obviously being at home, he's taking part in it. Should be interesting to see, but should be fun. Always the All-Star game in Major League Baseball. I enjoy watching just to see the stars come out, the pitchers dominate for one inning. And I'm glad it doesn't mean anything. I think the way they did it for about 13, 14 years where the winner of the All-Star game secured home field in the World Series was absolutely ludicrous. Somebody on the Colorado Rockies hits a double to win a game, and that means the National League has home field advantage when the Cubs play the Red Sox. I mean, it just makes absolutely no sense. It's best that the team with the best record has home field advantage in the World Series, just like every other sport. The NBA and the NHL do it that way. Whoever has the better record has games 1, 2, 6, and 7 at home, and that's what they deserve for having that better record.
Yeah, absolutely. What do they do that for? Just to gain like interest in the All-Star game?
Yeah, in 2002, the game ended in a tie because they ran out of pitchers. And Bud Selig came up with the idea that going forward, we'll make it mean something. It's going to count, and whoever wins the All-Star game secures home field advantage for that league. In other years, it was just alternating. Odd-numbered years would be the American League, even-numbered years would be the National League, whatever it may be. But I think the way they do it now is best. Look, if the Red Sox win 112 games, get to the World Series, and face my San Francisco Giants, who might be a wild card team with 88 wins, the Red Sox would be 24 games better than the San Francisco Giants. They deserve to have home field advantage. We're seeing in the NBA, Golden State had a better record than Cleveland. Thus, they had home court advantage in the NBA Finals. Same way in the NHL Stanley Cup Finals. So I think that's the best way to do it. But they were trying to make the game mean something because it did end in a tie and they ran out of pitchers back 2002 in the game held in Milwaukee, which happened to be Bud Selig's hometown. So he felt somewhat embarrassed by that, and he was the commissioner at that point. But the way they're doing it now, I think, makes more sense.
Yeah, I remember when that happened. That was pretty crazy.
Yeah, I just remember the managers going up to the commissioner and going, well, what do we do now? We've used all our pitchers.
Right.
And it was a tie game. And it's like, well, it's a tie, and you can't have ties in baseball. But they had it that night. But, they try to make it mean something. They did for a little over a decade, but this is a good way to do it right now. It's an exhibition, which it should be. It shouldn't really mean anything in terms of the league having home field advantage in the World Series. Just give it to the better team, and that team, record-wise, deserves it.
Is the baseball All-Star game your favorite All-Star game out of the 4 sports?
I would say it's right there with the NBA All-Star game. I love basketball. I just think right now we're at a point in basketball where there's so much great talent out there. And again, it's not played like a normal game. I mean, you see scores, 160 to 158 because they're not playing really great defense. But I still enjoy the exhibition of just the incredible talent out there. Or you just see maybe this year with the Golden State Warriors, although I doubt DeMarcus Cousins is going to make the All-Star team because he's probably not going to play till January, but you could see all 5 Warriors out there on the court in an all-star game, although they'll do that in the regular season. But just seeing all the different combinations that they have will be interesting to see. But I enjoyed the baseball one. With interleague play, we see these matchups a lot more than we did years ago. Obviously, you get Max Scherzer. He's already pitched in the American League for many years, and now he's a dominant pitcher in the National League. The Red Sox already played the Nationals, so Mookie Betts and J.D. Martinez, those players were able to get at bats against Max Scherzer. So that it's kind of lost some of the luster because before interleague play, that's when you really saw the other league. I know I'm 55 years old, so I grew up in the 70s and 80s watching the All-Star games because you'd see players like Willie Mays or Henry Aaron, Pete Rose, Johnny Bench, Mike Schmidt from the National League that you really didn't see all that much. It was kind of fun to see the National League against the American League because they play a different brand of baseball too. Especially in the 70s and early 80s, the National League was a much faster game, relied more on defense and speed, and the American League was more of the power league. But, those things change, and now it's strictly an exhibition, and it's something to look forward to.
Yeah, I remember when it was similar. Obviously, I'm not as old, but I remember when, the All-Star game was national in American League, obviously the same as now, but we didn't get to see the National League as much as you can now. I mean, social media is everywhere now. Before it was kind of hard to keep up with everything unless you were a really huge fan of the game.
Yeah, now you've got the baseball package. You get the MLB package on your phone or on your cable. You can watch any game. ESPN does 4 or 5 games a week. There's Sunday Night Baseball. With all of that, if I'm a San Francisco Giants fan, I can get the MLB package and watch late night baseball games if I so choose. So it's much more accessible than when it was before. I remember growing up as a kid, there was Saturday afternoon games. Major League Baseball game on Saturday afternoon would be nationally televised by NBC, and then Monday Night Baseball throughout the late spring through the summer would be on ABC, and you'd really look forward to seeing the Giants and the Cubs in the National League or whoever it would be because you'd get to see all those great players in the National League. But now, if you're a Mike Trout fan, you can subscribe to the MLB Network, pay the $180 a year, and you can watch all the Angels games you want. So it's much more accessible now. So there's not that curiosity that was prevalent back in the 70s and 80s. Now you can follow any player at any time.
Yeah, definitely. On paper, this All-Star game seems really lopsided to me in the American League's favor. I mean, they're stacked. American League
the American League right now is the better league, especially top-heavy guys, because you have 3 teams, the Red Sox, Yankees, and Astros, are all going to win over 100 games if they continue to play at the current pace. The Seattle Mariners are starting to fall back a little bit. I think Cleveland ultimately will be the best team in the American League when we get to October because of their frontline pitching. The National League, the best team in the National League right now is the Chicago Cubs. The 10th best team in the National League is the Washington Nationals. There's only 8.5 games separating 1 through 10. The league is more mediocre. There's just a bunch of teams that are decent teams that can make a run into the postseason. The American League is loaded, especially just look at the American League lineup. Man, you get Mookie Betts, Mike Trout, J.D. Martinez, Aaron Judge, Manny Machado. I mean, you just go right down that line, and you're like, holy crap, that's an incredible lineup. Even on the fan voting, and Benintendi lost out to Segura. Benintendi is certainly someone who is worthy of being an all-star, as is Xander Bogaerts. But there's so many great shortstops in the American League. Starting with Manny Machado and then going to Francisco Lindor, and even Carlos Correa didn't even make it because he's had some injury concerns with the Astros. I mean, Xander Bogaerts, as great as he's playing this year, is still the 4th best shortstop in the American League. Shows you how deep the American League is talent-wise. So these sports, it's the same way in the AFC and the NFC, right? In football, the NFC is a deeper, better conference than the AFC. But they have a way of evening out, 5, 10 years, and then it kind of flip-flops back to the other direction. I remember growing up in the 70s and early 80s, the American League never won the All-Star game. I mean, it was frustrating as an American League fan at that time because the American League could not compete with the National League. Now it's been dominated more by the American League.
Right, like when I was a kid growing up, like on the separate sport, football, the NFC always dominated everything forever and a day. And then it just kind of flip-flopped.
Yeah,
interesting how that happens.
I would say it was about 15 years where the only time you saw the AFC win a Super Bowl was the Raiders in '83. And other than that, the 49ers, the Redskins, the Giants, they dominated. The Cowboys in the early 90s. And finally it was the Broncos in back-to-back years, 97, 98, that won those 2 Super Bowls. And it started to swing back in the direction of the AFC. Of course, the Patriots have won 5 Super Bowls since, and the Steelers won a couple. And, Peyton Manning won 2, one with Indianapolis, one with Denver, and of course Baltimore won a couple of Super Bowls as well. So it's a little bit more even right now. But you're right, growing up into the late 70s, early 80s, the AFC struggled. Once the Steelers run was over in the 70s, it started to be dominated by the NFC. But those types of things have a way of evening out in the long run. It's just they go 5, 10, sometimes even 15 years where one conference or one league dominates. And right now the American League looks like the better of the two leagues. Although in the World Series, you see over the last 10 years it's been split pretty much. Giants winning 3 World Series, Cubs winning a World Series, the Cardinals are always in there. So when you get to the October Classic, it seems to be more of a 50-50 split. But in terms of the All-Star game, it's been dominated by the American League really close to 20 years now.
Yeah, it's crazy. Steve?
So, as far as the Red Sox, who do you think the first half MVP is for them?
There's 3 candidates, Steve. I think, first of all, you have to look at Mookie Betts, who right now is the favorite to win the MVP of the American League. He's leading all of baseball in batting average and slugging percentage and also OPS plus. He's the best defensive right fielder in baseball by far. The team is 12-8 in the 20 games he's missed, about a 60% winning percentage. They're playing well over 700 ball in games he's played. I think he's the MVP of not only the Red Sox but also the league. But you're going to see some votes for J.D. Martinez. And you can kind of weigh into it, guys, that J.D. Martinez has had an incredible effect on Mookie Betts. I don't think it's really a coincidence that Mookie Betts is having a great year with J.D. Martinez in this lineup. Just like 2 years ago, Mookie Betts finished second to Mike Trout in MVP voting, and who was really the power source in that lineup 2 years ago was David Ortiz. So by having J.D. Martinez, it's helped Mookie Betts as well. But Mookie Betts right now is in the discussion as the second best player in baseball. I think Mike Trout, as we see now, he's in his 7th year. He's the consensus best player in baseball. But I think you'd make a case that Mookie Betts is the second best all-around player in baseball. I think he's the MVP, not only the Red Sox, also of the league. But J.D. Martinez is someone who deserves credit, and Chris Sale, who right now is the favorite to win the Cy Young Award. The Red Sox are leading the American League in individual categories, whether it's J.D. Martinez leading the American League in home runs and RBI, and Sale leading the American League in ERA and strikeouts. And then, of course, like I said, Mookie leading the league in batting average, slugging, and OPS. I mean, those 3 players are having career years and are all in the discussion for year-end awards. But I'd go with Mookie Betts because he also adds that defense. And not to mention 18 stolen bases as well. He's just a spectacular player.
He's special for sure. No doubt about that. Yeah, I was crazy again about Martinez over the off season. I mean, in the group that me and Steve have on Facebook, and I was just fanatical about Martinez coming over. He's come over, and even what he's doing now is even beyond what I would have even comprehend he'd be at this point. He's just raking right now. It's pretty impressive. He's like Manny right now, really locked in.
Yeah, it gives you everything, right, guys? He gives you the high batting average, the power, driving in the runs. Not quite as selective as Manny, but he's right there as being that tremendous right-handed power source because, like Manny, he's got power to right center, which was something that I think shows why he is such a great hitter. When you're able to go up the middle or even to the opposite field with power, that means you're staying back on the ball a little bit longer. You're seeing a little bit better, keeping that head straight. He's just such an incredible hitter. You can make a case he's the best all-around hitter in baseball when you can combine average and power. And there's another Martinez that he reminds me of who played, 10, 15, 20 years ago, Edgar Martinez, who was a great designated hitter with the Seattle Mariners, who could hit from right field foul line to left field foul line and power to all sorts of fields. That's who he reminds me of just as much as Manny Ramirez. He's a spectacular player, J.D. Martinez. And, he's healthy, which is important. And last year in 119 games, he had 45 home runs. So if you keep him healthy, Lord knows what he's going to put up this year. By all accounts, become a leader of this team. The young players really look up to him. I think he's had a profound impact with Mookie Betts, Xander Bogaerts, Andrew Benintendi, those 3 brilliant young players that they have. And right now the Red Sox, they lead the major leagues in runs scored for a reason. When you got Mookie Betts, J.D. Martinez, and then other guys having career years as well, like Andrew Benintendi and Xander Bogaerts, a lot of it falls into the lap of J.D. Martinez. Because like David Ortiz, throughout his career, he's that guy that you still fear in the lineup. When you're going up against the Red Sox, you have to know where J.D.'s batting. Is he on deck? Is he in the hole? When is he getting up this inning? We've got to avoid him because he's such a dangerous hitter.
Oh, no question. Like I always tell people, you really know when JD is locked in is if he's hitting power to right field and right center, then that's his power alley. That's what you know for a fact he's locked in. So,
Absolutely.
you know, that's an interesting comparison that you have with Edgar. I never really thought about that. Yeah, he was dangerous, obviously, too.
Oh, my God, he was a great hitter. I think he belongs in the Hall of Fame. Up until David Ortiz, he was the best, designated hitter the sport's ever had. And, the comparison with Manny is great because Manny did have that power to right center and into right field and just was just an RBI machine. But the similarities to Edgar Martinez also that they can just hit from foul line to foul line. We're talking about three brilliant right-handed hitters, three of the best that I've seen over the years. And JD is signed for next year. He's got a player option after that, so Red Sox may have to start looking at trying to work on an extension for JD Martinez. I know he spoke at the All-Star break that he's loved it here and would probably love to stay here because it's a good situation for him with all these young players who kind of look up to him. He gets the DH 2/3 of the time. He's done a decent job in the field. He's not a great fielder, but if you're looking to October, if the Red Sox are in the World Series, he will be in left field. Andrew Benintendi will be in center. Mookie Betts will be in right field in the National League parks. But maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves. But JD has done a fabulous job this year. He's been better than Giancarlo Stanton with the Yankees, although Stanton's starting to heat up in June and July. And, by the end of the year, you'll see his numbers will be eye-popping as well.
And the one thing that all three of those hitters have in common is they're all students of the game. They're just sponges when it comes to batting. I mean, and that's something that a lot of, like, your common fan didn't really realize about Martinez. I mean, they knew about it, but not to the extent what they're seeing now. I mean, you have to really be a hardcore fan of him and baseball in general to know exactly what type of a student of the game itself is for JD. It's incredible, and I think what he's doing is rubbing off on the younger people, and it's kind of taking over the clubhouse, so to speak. He's a leader. He's a leader right now, no question about it.
And a leader by example as much. He's not really a rah-rah guy. You don't need to be a rah-rah guy. When you go in, work your butt off in the cage, study the opposition, put all that time in. I think impressionable young players like Andrew Bogarts, Andrew Benintendi, and even Mookie Betts, although he's a superstar already, they look and they follow the lead of JD Martinez. And, this is a player who was released 5 years ago by the Houston Astros, was picked up by the Detroit Tigers. He reinvented his swing. I think he learned a lot from Miguel Cabrera, who's one of the best right-handed hitters I've ever seen. And he started to become the dominant hitter that he is. And then he goes to Arizona last year and just puts up ridiculous numbers in 2 months. Is on the open market and really looks like the only team that was interested in him was the Red Sox. Remember, it was February by the time they signed him. It wasn't like it was done in December or January. We were almost into spring training before they actually signed him. 5 years, $125 million, but he's got a player option after the second year. And the numbers he's putting up, I'm sure he's going to opt out after 2 years. That's why the Red Sox may want to get proactive and look to extend him because, a hitter like that, a power hitter, he's just right now 30 years old. I think he still could have 3, 4, 5 more good years as a DH, part-time outfielder. You want to get him extended because he's that guy in the middle of the lineup that makes it go.
Absolutely. Steve?
Yeah, I've been thoroughly impressed with him. Like Chris was saying, he was all in on him. Like every other podcast, he'd be talking about getting him. And, he's absolutely been right so far about him. I would extend him tomorrow.
I think that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, and again, Scott Boras is his agent, so it's not that easy.
Yeah.
In fact, when he was making his comments at the All-Star break, Scott Boras was right there behind him, probably saying, "Don't say anything. You don't want to weaken our value." But this is a tremendous hitter who really fits in here. Sometimes these free agents come here and it doesn't work out. We saw Carl Crawford. It just didn't work out. And I thought Crawford was an overrated player when he got here. I swear the Red Sox signed him because he stole 6 bases against them in one game, and they were impressed with that. This is a completely different animal, JD Martinez. This is a power hitter, a guy that's hitting in the 300s. This is a guy who, if not for Mookie Betts, would be on his way to potentially winning the Triple Crown. That's impressive stuff. And he's fit in beautifully. And he grew up, he was kind of a Red Sox fan. Remember that picture that was tweeted out during the off season? He came here, I believe, for his 19th birthday. His sister, brought him to Fenway Park to show him Fenway Park and the Red Sox only 11 years ago, and he grew up a Red Sox fan. So Red Sox fan, makes good and comes home and certainly is an MVP candidate. And one of the big reasons this team is 68-30, which is just incredible. 68-30 at the All-Star break. Who would have thunk that?
Yeah, not me, that's for sure.
No.
Could you imagine if bets cost him the Triple Crown? How crazy
that would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Oh my God,
that would be interesting. Miguel Cabrera won the Triple Crown 6 years ago with the Tigers, and at that moment, I still, to this day, believe Mike Trout should have been the MVP of the league. The Triple Crown was a big deal, I think, when we were growing up, and Carl Yastrzemski did it in 1967. I was only 4 when that happened, so I'd never seen it done. But to me, the bigger numbers now are on-base, slugging, OPS, OPS plus, WAR. Those are really the most important numbers because, look, Mookie Betts is not going to lead the league in RBI because he's a leadoff hitter. You know, and RBIs are circumstantial. You got to get up with guys on base, and home runs. That's almost like a specific skill level. You see these guys that will hit a ton of home runs, like Giancarlo Stanton, and Stanton's never going to lead the league in batting average. But both of those guys, J.D. Martinez and Mookie Betts, both worthy of MVP seasons. Like we said earlier, though, I think because Mookie is a Gold Glove right fielder, one of the best, if not the best defensive outfielder in baseball, and then you throw in the 18 steals, I think he would, nudge ahead of JD as not only the team MVP but also the league MVP.
So I got a question that changed subjects a little bit when it comes to the Sox. Are we playing with fool's gold right now with this team? I mean, meaning they didn't really upgrade what they need to upgrade in the off season as far as the bullpen. The starting rotation's a mess currently. How do you see the second half playing out?
I think that's a really good point. Right now, they're on a pace to win 113, 114 games. I don't think they're going to get there. I'm concerned about the rotation guys. Obviously, Chris Sale, the favorite to win the American League Cy Young Award. He's starting in the All-Star game. He's just absolutely great. Now, David Price, I think sometimes gets a little bit too much blame. You look at what he's done here in 2.5 years. He hasn't been what you would expect for $31 million a year. But he's still a guy who's 33-18 since he arrived at Fenway Park with a sub-4 ERA, 3.99 ERA. That's not great, but it's not all that bad. The one starter I'm a little concerned with is Rick Porcello. He seems to have one stinker every 3 or 4 starts, which is concerning because if he has a stinker in the playoffs, you may not get a second start. So I'm concerned about Porcello. And now Eduardo Rodriguez, injuring his right ankle on Saturday. He's going to be in a boot for 2 weeks. We know he's had injury concerns, not necessarily with his elbow or shoulder, but with a knee, and now with an ankle. Let's say he doesn't come back till mid-August. Stephen Wright, he's still up in the air with a knee situation. Pomerantz has had 3 rehab starts in Pawtucket and is all screwed up. His mechanics are screwed up. I know they need help in the bullpen, but I would look at a starter because if you get a starter, then as you get into the postseason, you can move one of your starters to the bullpen. And Eduardo Rodriguez may be a guy who translates well to the bullpen in the postseason. I think they may have to look at getting a starter to just solidify things in that rotation, and then obviously help that bullpen because I don't trust Heath Hembry or Joe Kelly in high leverage situations. Kimball's great in the 9th inning. Barnes has done a nice job. Maybe Tyler Thornburg turns the corner, gets healthy, and pitches well down the stretch. But the bullpen is a concern, as it usually is with Dave Dombrowski. Even when he was with the Detroit Tigers, never really built a bullpen to the championship level. So I think they may add a pitcher or two at the trade deadline. The problem is they don't have a lot of prospects to trade off. They've depleted their farm system in acquiring Chris Sale and Craig Kimbrell, and also they're up against the luxury tax. Do they want to spend money and start to pay the luxury tax going forward, something that John Henry's going to have to sign off on? The one starter that I'm really interested in, because I think you could get him fairly cheap because it'd probably be a salary dump by the White Sox, is James Fields. Last year of his contract, the Padres are picking up half of his salary, so it would cost the Red Sox about $3 million a year to have James Fields on this staff for the final 2 months. He started 21 games this year, not great, but in 15 of the 21 starts, he's given up 3 or fewer earned runs, and he's also been a mentor to David Price over the years. Maybe he comes in, can be Price's buddy and just be to the Red Sox what Jake Peavy was 5 years ago, just a hardened veteran who's going to go out there and give you 5 innings every 5 days and kind of solidify things. That's the name I threw out there. But who knows what the Red Sox are going to do over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, he's an innings eater, isn't he, Shields?
Yeah, he is.
Well,
I mean,
he
he gives
should
you
be,
6
I
innings
remember.
to start this year. And again, maybe getting back in a pennant race will, get the juices flowing a little bit. I mean, he had the nickname of Big Games James, which I thought was kind of funny because his career ERA in the postseason is like 7.2, so that's not really Big Game James. The only Big Game James I know is James Worthy, delivering a triple-double in Game 7 of the NBA Finals in 1988. That's a real Big Game James.
Yeah.
But I think James Fields, as a fifth starter, as a kind of a guy to stop the bleeding a little bit, so you figure out when Rodriguez is coming back, if Wright's coming back, what's the situation with Palmer. It's just someone that can go out there every fifth day and give you a professional start. That's what you're looking for, because you're going to score runs, especially as you play a lot of these teams in the American League that are just not that good. You can beat up on the likes of Baltimore and Toronto and the White Sox and Detroit and the have-nots of the league. But when you get down the stretch, you're going to need to have a sharper staff, both in the starting rotation and in the bullpen, if you're going to beat the Yankees, the Astros, the Indians, or whoever else is in the American League.
Another story that isn't being talked about, which I feel it should be, is how do you keep Sale fresh for the playoffs? I mean, luckily they're so far ahead, but you could potentially be a 100-win-plus team and not make the playoffs, hypothetically speaking. It's crazy.
Yeah, there's that opportunity, right? Yeah, say the Red Sox win 106 and somehow the Yankees win the division, and then the Red Sox are playing a one-game wild card game against the Oakland A's, let's say, who, by the way, are 4-2 against the Red Sox this year. So you have Sale ready for that game, or do you save him for the potential American League Division Series against whoever? I mean, you have to win that wild card game to advance, so that's why the division is so important. They've done a pretty good job this year. He's averaging 10, 11 fewer pitches per start, so that's a good sign. Remember last year at the end when John Farrell let him go out and set a strikeout record and get his 300th strikeout against the Orioles, I think it was, and it was like, why is he still out there? You got to manage his innings. Right. We see what his career has been like. First 4 months of the season, unbelievable. Career 2.6 ERA the first 4 months of the season, 3.3 career ERA the last 2 months of the season. So he does have a tendency of running out of steam in August and September, and then we saw that in the playoffs last year when he did not pitch well against the Astros in Game 1. So obviously you got to watch not just the innings, but it's the pitch count. If you can keep him at 90, 95, max of 100 pitches per start, I think you'll be okay. And, you kind of can wiggle the starts a little bit, maybe just skip a start, but you need that depth in the rotation. That's the problem they're facing right now. If Pomerantz and Wright and Rodriguez, if all these guys were healthy, you could even go to a six-man staff 1 or 2 times through the rotation just to give everybody kind of a breather. But you can't right now with Wright, Rodriguez, and Pomerantz questionable, and the fact that you want to win that division. It's a 4.5-game lead, which is, pretty good at the All-Star break, but the Yankees are a team that we know can win 10 out of 12 and kind of chunk into your lead. And let's not forget that the Red Sox play the Yankees 10 more times before the end of the season. Fortunately for the Red Sox, 7 of those 10 games are at Fenway Park.
Thank God for that. Steve?
Yeah, I remember when Pedro was around, they would give him a DL stint every summer.
Sure.
Just to let him recuperate, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that. It's unfortunate because back then the wild card would get in, but they'd already be in the division series. I'm not a huge fan. I like the idea of a second wild card. I just don't like that it's a one-game play-in. The Red Sox, like I said, could win 106 games. Yankees win 108 games. Red Sox have to play Oakland, who maybe has 91 wins. So you've been 15 games ahead of a team going into the postseason, and they can knock you off in one game. The wild card, I'd have a best of 3 instead of just one game, and the team with the better record would host all 3 games. That's the way I'd work it as far as the wild card. But then you're extending the season a little bit deeper, which is a concern you want to be playing into November.
Right.
That'd be such a travesty if someone won that many games that got bumped out. That'd be crazy.
Hey, I'm a San Francisco Giants fan. In 1993, they won 103 games. They didn't even make the playoffs.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's just crazy when something like that happens.
Yeah.
Wow.
So when it's all said and done, who do you think will win the American League?
I think it's going to be Cleveland. I mean, I know it's easy to say Red Sox, Yankees, Astros, they're all going to win 100 games. I thought Cleveland was the best team last year, and Corey Kluber, who I think is one of the 5 best starting pitchers in baseball, did not pitch well against the Yankees in the American League Division Series. He just didn't. I mean, I figured when he went out there for Game 5 that they were going to win it. He didn't have anything. I think Kluber, Bauer, Carrasco is as good a 3-man staff as you're going to see in the postseason. If Andrew Miller comes back, their bullpen will be elite. Jose Ramirez and Francisco Lindor are probably 2 of the most underrated players in baseball, and they still have a manager who's got championship pedigree, and they're going to sail the division title in the Central, which is such a weak division that they can get healthy, rested, and have everybody in place for the postseason. The only danger with that is, they wrap up the division by early September. They're going to spend 3 weeks playing for nothing. That happened last year to them, and maybe they were a little flat in the playoffs. But before the season started, I picked Cleveland. I'm going to stick with them. Although, this American League is loaded with the Red Sox, Yankees, and Astros. I think Cleveland's built to win in the postseason because of the power arms in their rotation and in their bullpen. And I do like some of their everyday players, especially Lindor and Jose Ramirez. 2 more great players, 2 more MVP candidates.
That's what I was going to say, but you kind of answered my question. I was going to give you if you thought it was going to hurt him because the division's so weak, but you already answered that already, so.
Yeah, sometimes it happens.
Give me that question.
Yeah, well, sometimes I must be clairvoyant. I'm thinking ahead. I'm reading you guys' minds, which is probably more dangerous for you than me. But
probably.
I just think that just looking at that team, I just think they're built for the long run. But that division is just so god awful. I mean, Kansas City won the World Series 3 years ago. They're on a pace to lose like 108 games. Detroit's mailed it in. The White Sox are god awful. And Minnesota, is kind of sticking around, but they're no factor. So Cleveland's going to win that division. It almost feels like the AFC East, right, where the Patriots are going to win the AFC East no matter what. Yeah. Does that make them better or worse going into the postseason? Sometimes the Patriots waltz to the division championship so easily that when they get to the playoffs, they're like, oh, there's competition out there. So I wonder if that will impact Cleveland going forward.
Right, it's funny on a different. I know I'm all over the place, so we'll be here tonight. But I hear all these names out there, fans are like, and we hear in media, oh, they're going to get this player, they're going to get player X. Like we talked yesterday about Barraclough from Florida.
Yep.
And it's like, how are they going to do this? Because the Red Sox farm system is ranked 24th in the MLB. They're tied. Supposedly right now, they're rumored in on Moustakas from Kansas City, but so isn't Atlanta and New York. And to me, that doesn't make sense because what are you going to do with Devers at that point?
The only thing I can think of, guys, is is Devers' injury more concerning? Although I'm hearing that he's supposed to be back by this weekend, so I don't think that that's part of it. Are they looking for some depth where they may play Devers at first base occasionally and sit Moreland? And I don't know. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think, the priority should be to get pitching, and more pitching.
Right.
Especially now with Eduardo Rodriguez, who you can make a case has been their second best starter this year, out for at least 2 weeks. I mean, it's going to be longer than that. He's going to be in a boot for 2 weeks. Then he'll be reevaluated. And then even if everything goes okay, he's going to need some rehab starts. And Eduardo Rodriguez, this is the 4th year in a row where he'll essentially give you 20 starts. He's not been the most durable guy. So without him, what do you do for that starting rotation? Obviously, you're very comfortable with Sale. Porcello, does he right the ship a bit here after having some struggling starts his last 3 or 4 starts? I would think so. And he's a professional pitcher. He's a solid guy. He's best as your 3rd best starter. Obviously, the X factor is David Price. If David Price, can go out there in the postseason, pitch 7 innings and give up 3 earned runs, you'll take it. He's never won a start in the postseason. He's had ample opportunities. So I still think it's about pitching. And then that bullpen is still shaky to me because Joe Kelly and Heath Embry are just not 2 guys that I trust in high leverage situations at all. So I think that's where they should really focus on to improve this team if you want to improve a team that won 68 games before the All-Star break. But plan on beating the Indians and the Yankees and the Astros. You're going to have to beat 2 of those teams to get to the World Series. You're going to have to be probably even better than you've been so far. Because the interesting part about it, guys, not to get long-winded, but the Red Sox against other American League contenders, the Yankees, Astros, Mariners, A's, and Indians. They're 12 and 14 this year, so they're sub 500 against those 5 teams. Now they're 5 and 4 at home against those teams, and they're 7 and 10 on the road. So they've played more games on the road than at home. But they haven't exactly been lights out against some of the contenders in the American League. Now some of those games were earlier in the year, and they're a better team now than they were then. And that there's so many different ways you can paint that. But as good as the Red Sox are, they're not going to waltz to the World Series. I don't think they're going to have to tweak that staff and bullpen to really be on the same level as the Astros, Indians, and Yankees.
100% agree. That's why I was talking about, if this is fool's gold at the moment, without them fixing the holes. I mean, they're going to have to bash, and we know what happens in the playoffs. Right. All it takes is learn to a good starting rotation, and you're done.
Exactly. And also,
it's funny because no, go ahead.
Oh no, and you look at this lineup, and it's a young lineup still. I get that, but Betts has not performed great in the postseason. Benintendi hasn't. Bogarts hasn't. Jackie Bradley Jr. hasn't. Devers, I believe, had a home run last year against Houston in the postseason. J.D. Martinez has a short sample and has been pretty good in the postseason, but it's not like, say, the 2004 Red Sox, when you had Ortiz was in his second year of the Red Sox and you knew he could rake in the postseason. Manny was a guy with a track record in the postseason. Even Damon and players like that, you could see what they could do in those situations. A lot of these guys, they're very young. They haven't really shown it yet that they can perform in the postseason. And like you said, once you get to the postseason, there's still a lot of home runs, but, pitching is so important. And, they're still going to have to address that, I think, going forward. Dave Dombrowski has never been afraid to make big moves at the trade deadline. But like you guys said, they don't have a lot in the farm system to offer, and they're right up against the luxury tax in terms of salaries. So do they go over that? Is John Henry going to want to write a big check going forward? I think you have to if you're this close to maybe winning another World Series, because you can never say, well, next year, the following year. You've got to go after it when you have a chance and do it now.
To me, the Sox' biggest problem is they can't afford to get into a bidding war with somebody because they don't got the prospects without taking someone off the roster as is right now. I just don't see how they're going to be able to outbid anybody. I don't see it happening. So you have to get the right deal and just hope for the best, basically. Like you said, Shields is pretty intriguing because it's probably not going to cost you much to get him.
You may get a mid-level prospect, and then you're paying $3 million of his salary, which, if you can't afford $3 million, then you're not the Boston Red Sox. I mean, this is a team that grosses nearly $500 million a year. I think they can afford that. But, I think he'd be a decent fifth starter, good stopgap guy, to go out and get pick up DeGrom or Noah Syndergaard. Yeah, that sounds all well and good, but Lord knows what you'd have to give up for that. And they don't have that to give up. They don't have those elite prospects to go after a pitcher like that, like DeGrom or even Syndergaard. Those are two names that people are floating out there because the Mets are not going to trade those guys to the Yankees. Maybe you make a preemptive strike, but they just don't have the prospects. They just don't, unless they want to part with someone on the current roster. And who is that? Jackie Bradley Jr. is not going to bring back a lot. I know he's playing better the last month. I mean, Devers is probably the most tradable commodity they have in their starting lineup now because those other guys are established as all-stars. You're not going to just start moving Xander Bogaerts for a pitcher at this point. And Devers is a guy who's so young, still cost control for many years. You want to part with him? I don't.
No, me neither. in the two really high prospects that the Sox have, Groom, he's out for the season.
Right.
Tommy John. Chavis has come back from his PED suspension, and he's done nothing. I think he's like 3 for his last, 60 or 3 for 20? Something terrible.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they can't even consider moving them for this season. So
no,
they're kind of
two best prospects.
At the moment.
Yep. And this is something that's happened before with Dombrowski. I mean, he built the Tigers into a contending team, didn't quite finish it off. I mean, we saw they got to a World Series, lost to the Giants. They lost to the Red Sox in 2013 in the American League Championship Series. Couldn't quite get over the top, oftentimes because their bullpen was not that good. Depleted their farm system to the point now that since Dombrowski's left, the Tigers have gotten worse every year. So it kind of happened that way with Miami. He's good at signing free agents, which you can give him some credit for that, but it also takes a blank checkbook to do that. Not every franchise has that. And he's not afraid to go get established players or players coming into their own and giving up prospects. That's all well and good. The sale trade, you do it again, right? The Kimball trade, you do it again. But there's just not a lot there in terms of prospects to go after players that you need to try to help your team. That's why you kind of have to do a pragmatic approach and look at someone like James Shields or even Zach Britton. It would cost you about $4 million a year, $4 million for the rest of the year with Zach Britton, but you're gonna have to give up a little bit more of give up a better prospect for Britton than you would for Shields, because I'm sure the Orioles would want something in return more so than just a salary dump, because they can get something for Zach Britton, because he could be a guy that could alter the playoff race without question, because he's that type of pitcher. He seems to be pitching a lot better. I think he's been last 7 outings he's given up 3 hits, no earned runs. So he can step into someone's bullpen, whether it's Cleveland or Houston, and make a big difference. So you may have to look at Zach Britton as well.
I would like Britton or Barraclough. Those are my two guys with the pen.
Yep.
I think you'd have to give way too much for a hand.
Devers
minimum.
Question.
That's just a starting point. And
Yep,
I like
exactly.
Devers. I don't want to give up on him right now. He's too young.
No, without question. He's 21 years old. I mean, he's already exhibited that he has tremendous power. I think he's improving as a defensive third baseman. Yeah, you don't, and again, you have that cost control for several years, and that's something that is huge for Major League Baseball. That's why the Yankees are able to do what they're doing. They are $60 million below the luxury tax because they have so many great young players. I mean, they have plenty of money to spend at the trade deadline if they want to make a move for, say, Cole Hamels or J.A. Happ, 2 starters that have been rumored going to New York.
Wow. Well, that's all I got. You got anything else, Steve?
No, I mean, just the Devers. I mean, I wouldn't trade him either. There's not many guys in the league who can turn around a Chapman fastball in the ninth inning of a game. That was ridiculous.
It really was, wasn't it? That was one of the best at bats of last year. I mean, Chapman is a guy. There was like 103 mile an hour pitch that Devers took to the opposite field at Yankee Stadium of all places with that crowd Sunday Night Baseball. And going to left center at Yankee Stadium is not like going to left center at Fenway. That's a long way away. No, I wouldn't move any of those pieces. Because bullpen, you may find an arm out there. Maybe there's someone in the minor leagues that can step up. But again, the 2 relievers that they have on hand that are pitching some high leverage innings just really scare the hell out of me. Hembree and Joe Kelly. They really do.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't seem like anything good's going to happen when they come out to pitch. I mean, if Joe Kelly hadn't done what he did to the Yankees and became the people's champion, he would be probably the most loathed Red Sox. The last 2 months, his ERA is over 9. I mean, that's not good.
No, it's not.
Yeah, and even Matt Barnes, he scares the crap out of me too when he's in there. Especially high leverage stuff on the road.
Exactly. And it puts more pressure on your starters. Now you're looking, okay. I mean, Alex Cora's done a phenomenal job with this team, but sometimes you're going, okay, let me get 1, maybe 2 more outs from my starter because I just don't trust this bullpen, and then that exposes the starter in a tough situation. So that's something that they're going to have to address, a starter and a reliever. And again, Tyler Thornburg, I know he looked a lot better his last performance. If he's somewhat close to what he was in Milwaukee, now you get yourself a good reliever going forward, and that can help the bullpen situation.
Yep, definitely. I'd like to see Britton here. I think he would do pretty well here. Yeah. 8th inning guy.
Absolutely. Yep, a lefty too, which they don't really have in the bullpen.
Nope. No, I liked Andrew Miller when he was here. He was pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, he's been outstanding. I mean, look what he did in the postseason a couple of years ago. He was unhittable pretty much for the Indians, and if he comes back this year healthy, and he's been doing some rehab, that he's going to put that team right into play along with the Astros, Red Sox, and Yankees to be the best team in the American League.
Definitely. Yeah, that's all I got.
Excellent.
So before we let you go, where can everyone find you? Plug your show.
Oh, sure. Weekdays 1 to 3 on BostonHeraldRadio.com. 1 to 3 every afternoon, BostonHeraldRadio.com. And they can follow me on Twitter at JohnSap25, JOHNSAP, and the number 25.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on. Good stuff.
Anytime, fellas. Anytime.
Absolutely.
I enjoyed it.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Thanks. You
Have a
too,
good
guys.
one.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Let's wrap it up by thanking all of our guests for coming on this week. Greg Bedard, Mark Allred, John Karalis, and John Sapochetti. Chris and I both really appreciate you coming on this week for us. I know all of you are very busy. I can tell you all of you do great work. So thanks again for coming on. As always, you can find our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, TuneIn, Stitcher, all the major podcatchers out there. Check out our website, www.diehardbostonsportsfans.com. Find us on Facebook at Diehard Boston Sports Fans and the page one, Steve and the Hood present Boston Sports. Twitter, we have Diehard Boss Fans. We play for titles. And what's yours, Chris?
Mine is Chris, capital CHRIS, _ Blackie, BLACKY. And I would also chime in a little bit and say you can find our links on Full Press Coverage, Full Press Radio, WTP Sports. The Growing Truth is going to be on it this week. Our show airs every Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock on 12 Ounce Radio, so definitely check out there. It's been a hell of a ride so far for our first 50 shows. It's just been remarkable. Just been a fun ride doing everything with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's all started, with the beginning. We get Keith Folk on. I think it was like episode 4, and so that was pretty amazing. And then it just kept getting bigger from there. So can't wait to see what the next 50 bring.
Absolutely.
So, thanks everyone in advance for listening, and sharing this episode. Take it easy.
See ya.